Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Acting Deputy President. As a servant to the fine people of Queensland and Australia, I note that the Modern Slavery Act 2018 establishes the Australian Anti-Slavery Commissioner as an independent statutory office holder within the Attorney-General's Department. The role of this new Commissioner is to bring together the different initiatives government has taken since the Modern Slavery Act was enacted. These include a unit inside the Attorney-General's Department and other agencies, including Border Force, to monitor the existing anti-slavery legislation, and an ambassador to counter modern slavery, people smuggling and human trafficking. The bill clarifies the Commissioner's ability to share information within the Australian Federal Police and other law officers that will be useful when slavery is brought to light. The definition of slavery in the Modern Slavery Act, which the Commissioner will be relying upon for their actions, is wide enough to include that which everyday Australians would consider slavery. There is an issue with the definition of child slavery that I'll return to in a moment. Noting the absence of penalties in either this bill or the Modern Slavery Bill, I hope the Commissioner does receive the level of cooperation necessary to eliminate slavery in the supply chains of corporations doing businesses in our country, Australia. And, of course, eliminate slavery as it exists in Australia, which is mostly sex slavery. Senator Shoebridge has advanced an amendment which should improve cooperation with the Commissioner. One Nation will support the amendments. The Commissioner will provide an independent mechanism for victims and survivors, business and civil society to engage on issues and strategies to address modern slavery. This is the area of the bill that was dialed up following the committee report. There seems a strong emphasis on telling the stories of those workers who are being exploited and preparing material to inform business and the public on the issue. While One Nation will be supporting this bill, I believe Australians across our country consider slavery repugnant. And the best option is to proceed to criminal and economic sanctions right now for businesses that include slavery in their supply chains. Deal with it now and stop slavery now. Businesses had more than 3 years to establish if they have slavery in their supply chains. That should be plenty of time. Simply reporting on it, and self-reporting at that, is not an effective solution. That approach is nearing its use-by date. One Nation looks forward to the Commissioner stepping this up and clearly communicating sanctions to business and working with the Attorney-General and the Minister for Trade on further sanctions and penalties. It's essential that an Australian can consume a good or a service bought in our country, safe in the knowledge that they are not rewarding the use of slavery. It's useful for people who see something to have somewhere to say something. For that reason, I look forward to the Commissioner operating a telephone and web function, allowing for people to report suspicions they have around the use or keeping of slaves. That could be used for reports of child slavery and child labour. For all the talk about child labour, we still have children in the Congo digging up lithium so that urban elitists can buy their electric vehicles and install their power walls and pat themselves on the back about how worthy they are. This has to stop. Stop turning a blind eye to these kids dying in the Congo and other places. The mechanism in place so far has failed miserably to help child labourers, and One Nation has legislation already before the committee. It's our measure to prevent goods being made with child labour from entering into Australia. A problem that continues to exist in part due to the definition of slavery used in the Modern Slavery Act, which the Parliament passed in 2018. The Commissioner will be operating under the definition of child slavery, which only traps, quote, the worst forms of child slavery. That's all it traps, the worst forms, not all the forms. This is taken from Article 3 of the International Labour Organization Convention on the Prohibition and Immediate Action for the Elimination of the Worst Forms of Child Labour. This includes, in part, for, quote, work which, by its nature or the circumstances in which it is carried out, is likely to harm the health, safety or morals of children. That's the end of quote. All these years, all this talk about child slavery and all these Australian government actions, yet these poor children are still digging up cobalt with their bare hands when they should be at school. The International Labour Organization Convention has a far better definition of child labour, which my office is using. And that definition is that child child labour, not child slave labour, it's more encompassing. Child labour is a child under 14 who misses school or would miss school if it were available in order for work. So work takes them out of school. That definition captures people who are caught in a never-ending cycle of poverty and misery. Children working to bring home a tiny income to support their family and who never receive an education necessary to break out of that cycle of poverty, trapped in poverty and misery for their very short life. These children work until their bodies are broken, and then their children take their place. Child labour may provide large corporations with extra profits from cheap minerals, coffee and textiles, amongst others, yet it's just plain wrong. It is inhuman. I framed my bill to relate to child labour only because the Modern Slavery Amendment Australian Anti-Slavery Commissioner Bill 2023 has been on the drawing boards for some time. My bill covers what this bill does not cover. Having seen the final version of this bill, I will provide the committee with an update on an amendment to my bill to allow the Slavery Commissioner to be the point of reporting of child labour on imported goods, in addition to child slavery. One Nation will support this bill, and as servants of the people of Queensland, I will continue to pursue this issue. Thank you.